Welcome to the week number 4 introduction. The purpose for me having this presentation for week number 4 is to discuss the different activities, and then also there are some prerequisites that you'll need to complete this week in order to be prepared for our face-to-face days and our culminating projects. So this presentation will be information about activities for this week, our face-to-face days, and the bigger projects for class and next week, starting Monday, the 27th. So next week when we meet face-to-face, we will be meeting in the Murphy Center at Viterbo University in room 404. What you need to bring with you is our course text, a device of some kind, a laptop, a tablet, something of that nature, a notebook or things like that. And then an actual spiral notebook or paper, pencils, highlighters, Post-its if you have Post-its or those little Post-it flags, because sometimes there might be something that you're going to want to flag to remind yourself to use later on. Much of what we'll be doing next week is discussing a lot of the instructional strategies that you can use in order to activate background knowledge, work with the content vocabulary, and engage the reader. So lots of different graphic organizers and instructional strategies that you can use in the content areas. One of the first things that you'll need to do for this week is to read chapters 6 through 8 and 12 through 13 of our course text Subjects Matter. And you'll be participating in two discussion forums using a strategy called Save the Last Word for Me. Here is the directions for Save the Last Word for Me, and this is a strategy that I use in my classroom when I have students discussing a novel that we are reading. So basically what you'll be doing is, as you're reading, it's divided into two different forums. You have one forum that's on chapters 6 through 8, and then the other forum will be on chapters 12 and 13. But the procedure for each will be the same. So as you're reading, what you will do is you will look for phrases, quotes from the text that struck you in some way. Kind of similar to the coding that we did. Something that surprised you, something that you thought was really important to remember, an interesting quote, or something where you were able to make a connection to. What you will do is you need to copy that exact quote and the page number that it was on, and that will be your initial post. So you'll post the quote, the phrase, whatever the excerpt is from those chapters that struck you in some way. And then what will happen is, over the course of the next few days, other students will then read your quote, your phrase that you chose, and then they will comment on it and give you what their thinking was about that piece of the text. And then what you will do, the title of the strategy called Save the Last Word for Me, is you will then in turn on Sunday have the last word. So on Sunday, you'll revisit your initial post and you will then explain why you chose that quote. What was meaningful about that phrase, that excerpt that you took from those chapters? Why did you choose it? And then also synthesize what the other classmates had mentioned and commented about as well. During the course of the couple days when other students are replying to your initial post, you need to do the same to others, is to read what they chose from those chapters and then make your comment on what you thought about that quote, that phrase, that excerpt that they chose. And this really encourages some deep discussion and deep thinking about the quotes, because other students might have a different perspective than what you have on that quote, and it might make you think about it a little differently. So that's why in the end, you end up having the last word. You chose that, you know why you chose it, you have a specific thinking about that excerpt, and then you get to hear what everybody else, their thoughts are on it and their perspectives, and then in the end, you get to then share why you chose that in the first place, and then also synthesize some of those other ideas from your classmates. Your initial posts for those need to happen on Thursday. And then by Sunday, you need to have posted your last word, what your thoughts were about that excerpt that you shared. The next things on the agenda is, and you won't see it listed here because I haven't finalized uploading it to YouTube and things like that, but there's a presentation on textbooks and study strategies and test taking. There's no activity surrounding those presentations, but the information contained in there is going to do some connecting to what you've read in the beginnings of subjects matter. And there might be some information that you want to use in your constructivist unit, which is one of our other pieces of agenda for this week. You're going to start thinking about your constructivist unit, our culminating project for this class in your portfolio item. What you'll see as a PDF attachment is there is a text set excerpt, and this explains and gives some examples of what text sets are and why they are used. So this week, what I want you to do is to start really thinking about what it is you want to do for that constructivist unit. Their unit of study that you feel strongly about or you want to revise. And as we continue through our face-to-face days, we will be learning more information about your constructivist unit and strategies that you can use within it. But this week, I want you to start thinking about what is it that you would like to do. So you will be creating a class reflection about the constructivist unit. I have a text set example that you will be able to use to model your text set after. But what I want you to do here is to start in your class reflection is to start thinking about what are the big ideas about content reading, reaching the adolescent learner, vocabulary, background knowledge that you want to include in your constructivist unit. Because half of that constructivist unit is your text set and the materials that you'll use and what you'll be doing with those materials. And then the other half of it is about the research behind your constructivist unit, the research behind content reading and the adolescent learner, vocabulary, background knowledge, those types of things. And you'll be taking information and putting it into this constructivist unit, both from our class text, subjects matter, and the presentations that you've seen so far. Nothing that you write down in this class reflection is going to be set in stone. So by that I mean that I just want you to start thinking about it, and I want you to tell me what are some of the ideas that you want to include in your constructivist unit. Because throughout our face-to-face days, there will be other things that you'll want to add when we discuss and share more ideas and explore different instructional strategies. But I want to kind of see where your thinking is going and what your plan is. My purpose for this assignment is so that I can then give you feedback as to where you're going and if it is the appropriate path to lead to the culminating project for the constructivist unit. Lastly, one of the last things that you'll be doing this week is to start thinking about those strategy presentations. When we started the course, one of the other projects that I discussed was the reading room. Well, when I went back in, the reading room is now closed. This has happened over the last few months because I have gone in there and I used it at the end of the school year. So I do know that it was open, but now it is closed. So instead, we're going to still focus on the different instructional strategies that you can use within your classroom, but we're going to do it in a little different way. The first two will begin on Monday the 27th, and what I want you to do for those presentations is to read the different strategies from Chapter 5. There's about 24 of those. So I would like you to choose two that you're interested in, two selections from there. And what you'll do is you'll introduce a strategy. What is a strategy? What is the purpose? When should it be applied? Before, during, or after? The grade levels or content areas that you can see it being used for. Then you'll need to model the strategy. You can do it either one of two ways. You can model it as your peers, where you're going to give us material at more of our level. And what you see attached here is I have a link to Kelly Gallagher's site, and he is also very strong in the content area, reading strategies. And he does an article of the week. So you can use some of those because those are articles that are taken from New York Times and things like that. They're used at the high school level. So you can either model the strategy to us as adults and have us practice it as adults, or you can model it how you would for your students with the materials that you would use in your classroom. So you need to introduce the strategy, model the strategy for us, and walk us through how you would implement it. And then provide any handouts and samples of the strategies that you want to share with the group. So if you've created a little cheat sheet or a little synopsis of it, or a graphic organizer that's going to go along with it, make sure to share those out with us as well. And I will make copies for those during our break or our lunch on Monday. And I'll do the same thing the following days. Tuesday, we'll focus on vocabulary strategies, and Wednesday, we're going to focus on other instructional strategies that I will provide for you. So the vocabulary, the Tuesday and the Wednesday presentations, I will provide you with choices that you can use in those two instances. So I have changed the rubric a little bit to align with using the alternative to the reading room, since that is now out of commission. So just take a moment to kind of look it over. I changed it in the syllabus as well, and I also uploaded it here. And the grading for these presentations are going to happen over the course of the 6 presentations. And then I will use all 3 of those scores as a final score for the presentations. So we're looking at clarity. Did you speak clearly? Did you come across with so that we could all understand you? Organization. Did you have a nice flow to your presentation? Synthesis. Conclusions. So that's all about the modeling of the strategy, explaining it to us. The significance, why that strategy is important. Your presence is did you have a good presence? Were you making eye contact? And I know that we all at some point are going to be a little nervous at first, but once we get to know each other, that'll come along much, much more smoothly. And then samples and handouts provided for us as well. And the time says 5 to 10 minutes per selection. And that's typically about what I've found when I've done this in the past, is that it's about 5 or 10 minutes per strategy. So about 15 to 20 minutes per student is typically what the time allotment is. So that is what our plan is for the week. So we have our 2 forums, Say the Last Word for Me, from the chapters in our Subjects Matter text. The starting to think about the constructivist unit, and then creating a class reflection about what your plans and your thinking are about that. And then the reading room, which is now closed and instead is now replaced with the strategy presentations, and starting to plan your strategy presentations, which will then be presented on our first face-to-face day on Monday. My plan for that is to have that happen in the afternoon, so that in the morning we can kind of get to know each other and kind of ease in to those presentations so that there isn't as much anxiety over it as well. Once again, and also don't forget to watch the textbook and study strategies presentation as well. If you have any questions, clarifications, or concerns, please post those to the General Questions for Carrie forum, or you can email me. I try to stay on top of that. All right. We'll see you on Monday.